I know what you're thinking, that this is the crash out video. Well, not really. That's the honest truth. I didn't even plan to make this video. My plan was to come back home from a wonderful MagicCon where I got to meet so many of you and hang out with my friends. And my plan was to go make some standard videos using some of the sweet Pro Tour brews and to continue making standard content. Yes, there's been a lot of brawl. That was just because that's what I felt like brewing in the couple of days leading up to leaving to go to the event. Honestly, it was a result of having to record a ton of videos in one day and not really having the stomach, I guess you could say, for playing Mythic Standard all day on that day, because that might have caused a real crash out video. But the plan is still to record videos in Standard and to release those for you guys, showing some of the sweet decks from the Pro Tour. That is what I'm going to do. But it appears that you guys want to talk about Standard. You guys really want to talk about Standard because there was a Pro Tour Final Fantasy at the MagicCon going on right up, honestly, right above, like right through the ceiling from where I was hosting my events. And at that event, the top 8 told its own story. So I tweeted out in classic CGB fashion, this is fine for a top 8 bracket that looks like this. Mono red aggro, mono red aggro, mono red aggro, mono red aggro. Is it prowess? Is it prowess? Is it prowess? Is it prowess? Yeah. Every single deck in the top 8 ran Monstrous Rage. Every single one. No questions. And that got people talking because this was my most engaged with tweet in probably years. The retweets, the comments, etc. You guys clearly have a ton of feelings about Standard, and I actually do have a lot to say. I didn't think this was a video I'd have to make, but we're going to make it. We're going to talk about the Standard meta, the upcoming changes that are happening to it, both through the ban announcements and the rotations. We're going to talk about why I think there is still a really good chance, a really, really good chance that nothing gets banned. And we're also going to talk about how even if it did, not much would change. And we're also going to talk about rotation and why that will not save us from this Standard, and why through all that, there is still hope for this meta. Hello, it's me at CGB, and today I'm going to make that talking about bans video. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor.
What's up, cool kids?
For the last month, I've been on the run from a certain giant green 10,000 needled somebody. But I've had help in covering my tracks on the internet from NordVPN. NordVPN makes you safer online with a single click. Their fake shop and scam detection allow you to shop online without falling for a dangerous shopping scam. Regular VPNs don't protect you against fake web stores, but Threat Protection Pro does. In fact, NordVPN was ranked 3rd in AV Comparable's Fake Shop Detection Test 2024, beating many other premium cybersecurity tools. NordVPN's dark web monitor gets you instant alerts about leaked passwords or personal data to protect your accounts. I was stunned to see how many leaks of my personal information were on the dark web. Okay, we're checking the dark web monitor and 23 leaks. Ooh, that's... NordVPN helped me fix it quickly so that Jumbo Cactar can't find me. And as a globe-trotting one in best of one online magical handsome influencer, now I can play on Arena safely, knowing I won't take 10,000 emotional damage out of nowhere, right? So get the fastest VPN in the business and use my link to get an exclusive deal and 4 months for free. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So go to nordvpn.com/CovertGoBlueVPN. That's CovertGoBlueVPN to get 4 free months and exclusive deal. And thank you to them for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the video. I hope you enjoyed that quick ad break, and remember, clicking on those links does support the channel. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I don't think I've ever put an ad in one of these kind of ranty videos before, but an ad was due on these days, so we do what we have to do. Today's video definitely could have been playing a standard deck from the Pro Tour, some of their spicier lists, but instead we are going to focus on the hot topic of conversation. How did this happen and what's going to get banned and what needs to get banned. So let's go over a few things first. Pro Tour Final Fantasy. The meta, my friends. It was released, I think, on Thursday going into the Pro Tour. And wow, Is It Prowess was 42.3% of the meta, with Azorius Omniscience right behind it at 20%, the second most played deck in the field, followed by Mono Red Aggro at 11% with 36 played. Then you see some other numbers from Domain Overlords, Demir Midrange, Jund Roots, etc., and it goes from there. So, with Prowess being an overwhelming part of the meta, and Corey Steel Cutter getting a lot of play, as well as Monstrous Rage in that deck as well, you would expect that all of the targeting for the Pro Tour, all of their sights would be set on this particular deck. It had dominated the RCQ season going in. Well, as it turned out, Is It is still incredibly good, but it didn't have the highest win rate at the event. Let's go to win rates. As we look at, as compiled by Frank Karsten, the win rates of decks at Pro Tour Final Fantasy in the standard portion. Number one in an incredibly small sample size at a 70% win rate was Orzhov Demons, but following it is Golgari Roots. So right away, our top two are not these red decks that we're talking about, and maybe that gives some people hope. Golgari Roots in particular was played by a pro team and put up over a 60% win rate. The fact that Mono Red is right there with a 60% win rate after remaining one of the best decks in Standard for years at this point is of course concerning. And then you see things like Selesnya Gearhulk, Boros Monument, Is It Cauldron, which is not the same as the Prowess deck. It tries to use the Cauldron of Souls VV combo, and so on. And we actually find Is It Prowess, which was being targeted at 48.9% of the win rate, which is not that great. So with everybody's eyes on it, Is It Prowess got dropped to a 48.9% win rate and still put 4 copies into the top 8. That is pretty discouraging for the brewers out there, but also in a way provides hope, and in probably very concerning to all of you, provides data for Wizards on what they might not need to ban. I can't recall how many times over the years I've seen ban announcements come out where they did not make changes, and they often use win rates as a defense for not making changes. That's one of the reasons that I'm very concerned that the upcoming ban announcement will include no changes. But things do continue to rise to the top. You might be saying, how did a deck like Orzhov Demons go 7-3 but then make top 8? How did Golgari Roots have this great win percentage but not make top 8? Well, blame Limited, because Final Fantasy Limited is a significant portion of the Pro Tour. For those who don't know, there are 3 rounds of Limited on day 1 and another 3 rounds of Limited on day 2. So a good record in Limited is required for you to be competitive, even if your standard deck breaks the format. Checking in on the top 16 at Pro Tour Final Fantasy, we see a very red picture, even despite those numbers I just showed you. Number 1, Mono Red. Number 2, Is It. Number 3, Mono Red. Number 4, Is It. Number 5, Is It. Number 6, Mono Red. Number 7, Is It. Number 8, Mono Red. Domain, well done, Edgar. Good job. Azorius Omniscience, welcome. I guess you're there too. Azorius Control, how did this happen? Mono Red. Is It Prowess? Is It Prowess? Mono Red. Is It Prowess? That's right. There were 3 non-red decks in the top 16. 3 decks that did not play Monstrous Rage out of 16 in the top 16. I mean, people are definitely looking at these numbers and saying that this has to be some kind of a ban in Standard. And I see where they're coming from. It makes a good amount of sense. And there is a ban announcement pre-scheduled coming up. The upcoming ban and restricted announcement is on June 30th. I'm recording this on June 25th. There is a lot of expectation from the community that Monstrous Rage will get banned. There's also a lot of expectation from the community that Corey Steel Cutter or Stock Up might have something done to them, because in the metagame for Final Fantasy, between Is It Prowess, Is It Proft, Jund Midrange, 43% of the field was using Corey Steel Cutter, 56% was using Monstrous Rage, and 61% was using stock up. These figures stopped short of historical highs from Oko Thief of Crowns and Omnath Locus of Creation, 69% and 72% respectively for the events that those cards were in. But my God, busted cards like that are really not the bar you want to be comparing yourself to with figuring out whether or not your card is okay. That is insane. Believe it or not, there was a time, and you can look at formats like Modern, where like if a deck is over 10% of the meta, people are wondering if it's problematic. We have 42% is it prowess, and we have 13 of the top 16 of a pro level event being defined in a way that you could say is one card, Monstrous Rage. So, what's going to happen? What's going to get banned? Everybody wants to know. And they ask me a lot at the event. People came up to me constantly at the event. What do you think should get banned? One thing I need to also address before we get into that is rotation. So rotation is coming up. That is a factor. Many people have brought up to me that some things don't need to be banned because rotation is coming. But let's talk quickly about rotation before we come back to what will be banned. So what will rotate out in 2025? This rotation will be the last one that triggers in the fall. The future ones will trigger like when the year changes. We'll get to that when we get to that. But what's happening is our next rotation is on August 1st with the release of Edge of Eternities. Edge of Eternities will come in, multiple sets will leave. The sets that will leave are, pay attention, take notes, Dominaria United, The Brothers War, Phyrexia All Will Be One, March of the Machine, and March of the Machine Aftermath. With these 5 sets leaving, my friends, the next rotation doesn't occur until February of 2027. And the sets leaving in February of 2027 are Wilds of Eldraine, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Murders of Karlov Manor, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and the big score, Bloomborough and Duskmourn House of Horror. So, the cards that we are keeping aren't going anywhere until 2027. Oh, just letting that sink in makes me... Anyway, let's talk about what's rotating and does it affect Standard. And to help you guys out and visualize why rotation isn't going to save us, I have prepared the top 3 decks from this Pro Tour to show you, even without taking into account anything new from Edge of Eternities, what these decks are like when rotation happens. First of all, here's a red deck. I didn't even bother like adjusting the mana base. You know, it has the village. It'll have the sand step, whatever. Does this red deck look any different to you? The one card that might have rotated out that would affect the red deck significantly was Lightning Strike. Oh, look, they reprinted it in Aether Drift. It's fine, guys. Everything's fine. Also, you could say Monastery Swiftspear, and I do think that will be a bit of a blow. I like Opera Love Song, and I include it here just to show that there is another way to get a Reckless Impulse type effect in the format, even with Ren's Resolve leaving, and also to let you know that we can also run the Teysa Lightbringer, the 3-mana 3/3 that like loots 2 cards when it enters. You know that card. So mono red won't even be lacking for cards. The deck changes in almost no way whatsoever without bans. The rotation mono red is the mono red that was crushing it at the Pro Tour. That is the unfortunate true fact. You get nothing, no help from rotation when it comes to mono red. How about Omniscience? This is an interesting one. So a lot of people have told me that Omniscience is dead when Invasion of Arcavios rotates, without quite realizing that a lot of the Omniscience decks already aren't playing Invasion. True, you don't get the free best of 1 value from the sideboard, but competitive Magic didn't need it anyway. So with Omniscience, the Omniscience deck doesn't lose nothing. In fact, it loses more than a lot of the decks that I'm going to talk about. It does lose Temporary Lockdown, which for you control players is the ultimate slap in the face, as now what the heck do we even have to compete with these aggro proactive decks? The answer is pretty damn close to nothing. The other thing that we lose is Moment of Truth and Yafara's Dispersal, a couple very good uncommons that let us dig through our deck to do the Omniscience combo. However, we're not without options. Picklock Prankster doesn't leave, neither does Chartercourse, neither does Roiling Dragonstorm. The Abuelo's Awakening, Omniscience, and the River Regent package is going to stay completely intact, along with Stock Up and Confounding Riddle. This is not changing. We can run other cheap cards in the 1-mana spot, like Into the Floodmaw and Spell Pierce to be reactive, and we can run Voice of Victory and Grand Abolisher to lock the opponent out of our turns, and we can still use Cavern of Souls to cast those cards. Now, the card that you might be wondering about is like, what now is the win con? And the truth is, any permanent that enters the battlefield and does something useful, like create a token or mill the opponent, can be used as a win con. For an example, I picked this unassuming little scrabbling skull crab. The fact is that you don't need the invasion whatsoever. When you have an Omniscience on the field and 2 dragons, 2 Meringue River Regents, you can play them bouncing each other and 1 other permanent. So if I get out 1 scrabbling skull crab, and I play a Meringue River Regent, and then I play another Regent bouncing this Regent and a Roiling Dragonstorm, and then play them over and over, I can eventually mill my opponent out with the Skull Crab. Now, eventually, the Dragonstorm will deck you, but don't worry, all we have to do is get a few more Omniscience on the field, then we can start bouncing and replaying Omniscience to get the Skull Crab to mill the opponent out. This is just an example of a stupid card we could use as a win con. Is the deck weaker than it was? Yes, but it's functionally very similar. The turn 4 play pattern of Awakening and Omniscience can still be lethal, and I think that that is an important thing to take into account when wondering if Omni will be any weaker in the future. I don't think it will be. On top of that, we have Izzet, the 42% of the metagame deck, and this is your rotation-proof Izzet coming up. Do you see any difference in this deck whatsoever from the version that's already being played? I actually included a lot of one-ofs here just to show how many options this deck still has. The loss is Swift Spear. I think that's all. I feel like I'm doing the Office meme where it's like, it's the same picture. Show me an Izzet deck now, show me an Izzet deck later. They don't even rotate Spire Bluff Canal. Like, what are we doing? So Quarry Steel Cutter is around, and they have options. Even if you take the Cutter out, you get Slickshot Show Off, you get the Planisphere, you get the Drake Hatcher. They have a lot of options in these spaces, even if you remove Cutter from the equation. And it is kind of crazy that if you remove Monstrous Rage, it's not like there aren't other cheap spell options along the way. And Dreadmaw's Ire is a card. A Wild Ride is a card they were already running to some extent. So even getting an effect for 1 mana that pumps a creature or pumps the VV is not ridiculous. Multiple Wild Rides were in some of these lists. So like, this deck barely takes a scratch from rotation. Rotation is not going to save you from the big 3 in Standard. The only possibility you really have is power creep out of Edge of Eternities, particularly when it comes to answers. Do we have a better temporary lockdown that we can turn to? The thought of that is, I doubt it. I really doubt it. They don't seem to power creep answers because that has huge ramifications going back to all formats, whereas, threats can be answered by old school cards like Swords to Plowshares and Fatal Push, and then you're okay. So I know, man, it's hard to picture with the things that are rotating out that anything will change, which leads us to, what the heck is going to get banned? What should they ban? This, I honestly believe that we are looking at a Standard situation with layers and layers of bans required to get us to a more normal state. I've said for some time, when people ask me what's going on with Standard, and particularly when I talk about why sometimes I don't enjoy it anymore, a lot of it is because it feels like Modern. The threats are so snowbally, the games are so potentially fast, if not interacted with perfectly at the right time. It does feel like I'm dealing in a Modern format, and I think the people designing Standard are okay with that. But it still feels too powerful to be Standard to me. Ending games on turn 3 it does feel out of bounds, but it happens in Standard, as one of my recent shorts very much revealed. So in my mind, this is a Standard on almost Eldraine levels, where the cards aren't as obviously broken that they're shattering other formats, although Quarry Steel Cutter is on track to do exactly that when you look at its performance across multiple formats. But in the sense that we need layers of bans. You look at a deck like Teamer Adventures, absolutely insane deck, but wasn't even close to the best deck when it came out in Eldraine. By the end of that format was the best deck and still had to be banned. Like a year later, adventure cards were getting banned. Like, we have layers to Standard right now that make it just absolutely bonkers and leaning in one direction. I don't think there can or will be a card as good as Stock Up to make sure that your turn 4 as a reactive or as a prowess deck is, or as a combo deck, is exactly what you need it to be. So do you ban Stock Up? Stock Up is literally like the only playable card draw spell in Standard right now. It is how it feels, unless you count Meringue River Regent, and a big part of that is that it doubles as a win con. I mean, that's an incredibly powerful card. So the idea of banning Stock Up, the most played card, the highest meta share at the Pro Tour, sounds kind of crazy in an environment where people are dying this fast. Is Stock Up your problem? What if they banned all of the most played cards? What if they banned Stock Up and Monstrous Rage, and they banned the Quarry Steel Cutter? What if all these cards got the axe? Is this a new Standard format? I mean, there is potential there for green decks to actually matter. There is potential for things with power and toughness to interact, but the deck play patterns to me stay the same. The mice are still going to be threatening kills very early, probably on turn 3. Izzet is still going to be threatening kills on turn 3. They've moved away from options like Slick Shot, Show Off, and Drake Hatcher because VV and Stock Up and Monstrous Rage are so powerful. VV and Wild Ride will still be incredibly powerful. In red, Dreadmaw's Ire can still be very powerful, or they can just have more Witch Stalker Frenzies. Many of them were already moving away from Lightning Strike for Witch Stalker Frenzy. The red deck will play very similarly, and it's kind of wild between Witch Stalker Frenzy and the dragon that has the Omen Side Roast, which was played pretty often at the Pro Tour. Actually, this roast effect got played. This 2 mana 5 damage Omen dragon got played a lot in the Pro Tour. That, like, if you don't have 5 toughness on your creature, the red deck's just going to kill it and knock it out of the way. And even if they don't, now you have to deal with a Screaming Nemesis running into it. I don't see the play patterns changing even if these cards are banned. I've run an Omni deck with no temporary lockdowns and no Stock Ups, and it plays the same. I ran that deck quite a bit of the ways to Mythic and did very well. I don't think the play patterns of any of these decks are going to be altered significantly by even a ban of all 3 of these cards. So you might say, then they may as well do it. And I would be all for it. I'm happy to be wrong in this case. I would like all these cards to be banned, but when you look at it the way that Wizards seems to look at formats like Modern, and when you hear what Wizards has said about bringing stability to Standard, then you start thinking from the other side, well, if the play patterns don't change when these cards are banned, doesn't that bring them back to not banning them at all? That's the tough part, guys. That's the tough part. And then they point to win rates and they say Orzhov Demons was the best performing Standard deck at the Pro Tour, not Izzet. Izzet had a 48.9% win rate, right? Roots. Insidious Roots got a 60% win rate. Barely edged out Mono Red at the Pro Tour, right? Right? You look at, if you watch the Pro Tour coverage, the Omni deck lost on camera more than it won, and it by a lot. So you look at that and you say, maybe the Standard is right what it needs to be. Maybe the bans aren't the answer. I think that the way these cards have been designed, the constant pushing forward and the fact that they don't rotate for a very long time, and especially things in the package like the mice, those cards from Bloomborough will always be in Standard together along with the cards from Eldraine. I think that there's a significant chance, guys, that it's going to disappoint most of us, that Wizards is just going to say, we're not going to ban anything. They're going to bring that stability that they talked about to Standard. They're going to point to some numbers and they're going to be like, go forth. This is the format. And I don't know for sure. Like, I don't know for sure. I just have that feeling, man. I have that feeling in my guts that they're going to say no bans, that they're going to absolutely blow our minds. And I'm going to say something else, I hope I'm wrong about this. I sincerely hope I'm wrong about this. I think even if they ban those 3 cards I mentioned, that the play patterns of the format won't significantly change. I think you could take stock up out of Omni and you're still going to have turn 4 Omni. And I don't think they're going to ban Omniscience. That's in Foundations. They meant for it to be in Standard for 5 to 7 years. It also completely guts a deck in a combo style play that they clearly wanted as part of their format. I think if you take Corey Steel Cutter out of Izzet, you still have powerful options. I think that Corey Steel Cutter hurts the resiliency of Izzet significantly, and that might be a good enough reason to cut it. But I think that you'll be surprised when there are still a ton of very powerful Izzet decks, and when the right build is found, it might still be a dominant force. So when you look at it that way, if you're not really changing the meta, why cut it? Let people keep their rare. It's a 48.9% win rate deck at this point from a certain point of view. So maybe they don't change it. And then, of course, Monstrous Rage. When you look at that top 8, man, 13 of 16 decks running Monstrous Rage. But you might dive deeper, and you might see that a lot of the decks were cutting them. They only ran like 2 copies, something like that. And they might look at that and say, you know what? It's fine. And if it were replaced, they would find pretty clean replacements. And of course, the mono red aggro style doesn't change. And the Izzet VV just gets what is sometimes an upgrade in Wild Ride that does a lot of the same effect and can come back to do more. So, guys, I'm telling you, in here, I can feel it. And I hope I'm wrong. I really feel like no changes is going to be the answer. And then you're going to see probably exactly the decks I laid out here with some additions from Edge of Eternities. That will be the same decks going through the fall. And if that is disheartening and people don't want to continue playing Standard because of that, can't really blame them. I'm doing it as content. I'm going to make some Standard videos. I hope you guys enjoy them. Please click on them if you enjoy them. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will stay at it. It is my job after all, with the occasional Brawl vacation. I also have a vacation coming up in July that may make me miss a few days, so bear with me there. But we'll see what happens. I will probably, I think I'll be around that day, so I can do a live ban reaction stream right here on YouTube. So save that. I can't wait to talk about it. But guys, man, what can you say? Standard is flourishing. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong about everything in this video. I hope I'm wrong about no bans. I hope I'm wrong about the play patterns not changing. I hope I'm wrong. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Remember to click on the sponsor of today's video. We really appreciate it. As always, you're cool.